For joining me today. My name is Elinor Larney. I'm the Registrar of the College of Occupational Therapists, and I want to welcome you to our webinar about the board and our upcoming elections. We are going to talk today about understanding a little bit about regulation. What is the role of occupational therapists in self-regulation and governance? What is the role of a board director at the college? Some of the things we're currently doing at the college. And if you were to serve on the board as a board director, what is the meeting and the time commitment? What is that all about? What is the process for election? And I'll be taking questions at the end. So you'll see on the webinar, you have an option of typing questions in. That's how we'll do questions today. So feel free to type in questions as you go. I'll probably only get to them at the end. And if I've answered them throughout the presentation, I may skip over them, but we'll see how that goes today. So first of all, why is regulation important? So we have a regulatory body, that is the College of Occupational Therapists in Ontario. We are one of 26 other colleges that all regulate health, and regulation provides the public with their assurance that they will get high quality care. We are here to protect the public. We're very lucky in our province. We have a wonderful professional association that will advocate for the profession. The college is here to protect the public. And so what we do is we set the standards for practice and enforce them and hold occupational therapists accountable for their practice. And so members of the public can call us and with their concerns, and we will look into them and take action if it's needed. So what is your role in self-regulation? So, you may not be interested in being on the board or on a college committee, or maybe you are, and that's wonderful. But you still can support regulation by actively participating in activities at the college. So participating in the election, supporting somebody's nomination and voting for the election when it happens, or standing for the election yourself, and if elected, serving on the board. So the role of a board director is varied, and the goal, of course, is to always make decisions in the public interest. There are committees that are available as well, and so we call them statutory committees when they are prescribed in the Regulated Health Professions Act. So all of the health colleges have certain committees that we have to have, and we also have other committees that help us with governance and some of the work we do at the college. So all board directors sit both on the board meetings as well as participate in committees. The board makes decisions about what are the standards of practice for the profession, what are the expectations for the conduct of occupational therapists, what are the competencies for entry to practice? So what does it take to become an occupational therapist in our province? How do you stay an occupational therapist if you have been a therapist for a long time or have left the profession and want to come back in? What are the policies and regulations and the bylaws that we have? And we have to follow the legislation that exists. So there's quite a bit of legislation that applies to regulation, and that is the Regulated Health Professions Act, that is consent legislation, privacy legislation, all that sort of stuff we're concerned about. The board director also participates in the programs of the college, so quality assurance, investigations, discipline, registration. They're involved with enforcement of the standards and the conduct expectations, as well as the transparency that the college is required to have in terms of our decision making. Board directors also participate in making decisions related to individual registrants and applicants to the college, so those people who would like to become an occupational therapist in the province. So some things we're working on right now. So hopefully you've all heard about our new national competencies for occupational therapists. That's a big project. We're going to be rolling it out at our college in the next little while. We are not anticipating that they will be enforced until next November, but you'll probably notice through the quality assurance program, not this time, but the time afterwards, that they will reflect the new competencies. So when you're doing your self-assessment, they will reflect those new competencies. So that's an example. Our prep module that's coming out this spring will include information on what is contained in those new competencies. And of course, if you're curious, you can look on our website and you can have a read through. One of the other big projects we're working on is modernization of governance. And you'll notice that I've been calling ourselves a board of directors and not a council. So we've changed some of the language. We're changed some of the expectations for board members as well. So increasing the requirements for declaring conflict of interest. We've outlined competencies that I'll show you later that would be applicable to people serving on our board. So modernization of governance, there's lots more coming there, and we're slowly putting things in place to increase the ability of our board to make decisions in the public interest. Another big endeavor for the college is performance measurement. The government has now asked all the colleges to provide a summary of the outcomes that they are working on and all kinds of statistics. So our database and our change to our new database absolutely help us to make sure that we're reporting accurate and timely information. Our quality assurance competency assessment project is a very big project for us. We've been working on it for a little while. It is a risk-based assessment process, and some of you may have noticed we've stepped up some of that. We haven't stopped the mandatory requirements, of course, so your annual or biannual self-assessment, your professional development plan, and our yearly educational modules still continue. The random selection, or which is now a risk-based selection, will be increasing in the next little while. And finally, I think something to highlight is our focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's been a big push for the college. If you have been reading the new competencies, you will see there's a new section in there on culture, equity, and justice. And so that's a more highlighted section than it has been in previous competencies. So that's a really big push for the registrants, for occupational therapists. We will have more information on that coming out sooner, just to help you learn a little bit about what that's all about. But there's other things that we're also doing internally at the college. So looking at some of our programs, making sure that we're focusing on that as well. And you will notice that we also absolutely welcome diverse perspectives on our board, and so would encourage people with diverse backgrounds to stand for election and possibly get elected onto our board. Be absolutely welcome. So if you were to be on the board, what does this mean? So it's a 3-year term, which starts March 24th. We do provide an orientation the day before just to get you started. And of course, that's not the only orientation you'll get. We really try to help all of our board members to really understand what their expectations are. Staff will really help to prepare all board members for all the work here at the college. And so we do lots of education throughout the year just to keep everybody abreast of things. And anytime you would be on a committee, you would receive an orientation before you got there. And of course, staff are here to help everybody through all the processes. So that's important to know. So it is a 3-year term. We do have 4 board meetings per year, and at one point in October, we have an education day. So we say to save about 5 days a year to participate. So make sure, if you're interested in participating on our board, that you have the ability to not only attend our board meetings, which are usually on Thursdays during the day, and they can take a full day. Make sure you're able to attend, as well as be able to participate in our committee meetings. And so each board member would serve on 1 or 2 committees, which typically meet about once a month, and every single committee meeting has preparation. So if you're coming to a board meeting, there's reading to do ahead of time, and there's also reading to do before all of the committee meetings. You want to be prepared so that you can make the best decisions possible when you're participating in those meetings. So we do have orientation. There is an onboarding process. And as we go throughout the year, there is learning and development. And of course, staff support all of the board members and all the committee members for all the work they do here at the college. So one of the things we've been working on at the college is our board competency framework. And you'll notice that looks like a lot of things. What we hope is that the composition of our board, we will include all of these things with everybody's competencies together. And so, we may not, for example, have everybody be the exact same age, but if we had a range of ages, that would be great. Range of genders, range of professional experiences. If you look at the attribute column, those are attributes we hope that all board members will come with, that they'll be accountable, that they'll work well with others, that they'll communicate with each other, they'll have inclusive, respectful communication and actions with staff and with other board members, that they'll be able to maintain a public interest focus, and that they have self-awareness so that they can manage any concerns that come up. In terms of knowledge and skills, that's quite a long list. Probably not everybody's got financial literacy, but if we have a few people on the board who feel comfortable with that, or if they don't, then we know as a college what we need to target in terms of education. But leadership skills are important. Important decisions are being made for the entire profession at the board level, and it's important that people are able to show leadership. If you have board and governance experience, that's always wonderful. Not everybody will have it. Sometimes coming onto a college board is the first time you've ever been on a board, and that's okay too. We're hoping that there'll be enough people on our board that have experience, so the ones who don't can learn from them. And of course, as you participate, you'll gain experience. Regulatory understanding. Not everybody comes with that, but if you do, that's great. Understanding risk management, how we work with our stakeholders, and of course, the technological competence. All of our work right now is electronic, so you've got to be able to manage at least logging into a Zoom meeting, reading your materials online, all that sort of thing. So that's what we mean. No, you don't have to fix any computers if they're broken. So that is generally our competency framework that we are using, and anybody who wants to participate in the elections this year by being nominated, we will send out a self-assessment to you that you can tell us how you are doing with all of these things, and then we can tell who's on our board when it comes up and determine any learning needs that the board as a whole has. So the board also has fiduciary duties, and those really are what are the requirements inherent in the position of being on the board that all board members would need. And of course, the duty to act honestly, in good faith, and with a view to the best interests of the college. So personal interests are not appropriate. A duty of loyalty to the work of the college and the goals and the mandate of the college. Avoiding conflict of interest. If there's something that you can't honestly make a decision about because you are working on something that's in conflict with it, declaring that and managing that properly. And of course, a lot of the work we do at the college is highly confidential. So being able to maintain confidentiality about the work we do here, especially when it relates to specific registrants, specific occupational therapists, very important. Directors need to be able to work with each other in a collegial, respectful way and actively participate. Being on the board is about sharing your views, however diverse they may be. All of those views lead us to better decisions. And of course, speaking with one voice does go with loyalty, because if a decision gets made at the board, then everybody supports that decision. And that's a very important part of belonging to a board and working properly. All of our board members are expected to come prepared for meetings. So when I talked earlier about the reading ahead of time, there absolutely is a reading that needs to be done. We expect that people will have read that, read all the materials ahead of time, and come prepared to ask questions and prepared to make a decision. And very important to know that that's part of the time that you need to set aside. If you're going to be on a committee, know that the committee might be 3 hours. You might have some preparation time the week before in order to be able to participate properly in that meeting. Managing conflict of interest, so avoiding it or disclosing it. Conflicts of interest are inherent in our work, and things may come up, and it's not a bad thing. It just needs to be managed, and you can't make a decision if you've got a conflict of interest with that particular decision. As we talked about, maintaining confidentiality and preparing and treating people with respect. and making decisions in the public interests. And that is very important. It's very hard to take off our OT hats. We love our profession, and that's an important thing. But when we're at the college, our goal is protection of the public, and keeping that in the forefront of our mind is incredibly important. We also have a board code of conduct, and we have bylaws in terms of eligibility to remain on the board, and all of those things have to be complied with. When do we have meetings? So we have 4 board meetings per year: March, June, October, and January. In October, we tend to have an education day beside the board meeting, so we usually have 2 days, although with the Zoom participation, we've cut it down just a bit just to manage fatigue on the screen. But that's generally, and then in between all of those meetings are committee meetings that would happen, and those committees happen, they're not necessarily all-day meetings. Some of them can be half-day, and right now, of course, we're doing them all on Zoom, and once we're feeling it's safe to be back in person, we'll be having discussions about what's appropriate and what's not in terms of on-site versus Zoom type meetings. So here are the committees that board members participate in, and some of them are from the RHPA, and some of them just help us get our work done. We have a new governance committee, and the job of that governance committee right now is to help us with our governance modernization project. And so that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of bylaw changes. If you pay attention to the bylaw changes that come to you from the college, you'll see we've had a lot lately. There'll probably be some more coming. We've added a new finance, audit, and risk committee. That's best practices in terms of managing boards. And so that is a new committee that we have, and we're just getting started, and it's exciting to have those new things happen. The registration committee, the job of that committee is to make sure that anybody who wants to be an occupational therapist in Ontario meets the requirements and sets what are those requirements. And if there's somebody that we think maybe doesn't meet the requirements for whatever reason, then the committee would deliberate on their file and make a determination about whether they're actually going to be eligible or not. And so that's very high level about what the registration committee does, but anything related to are you going to be able to register or not? The Inquiries, Complaints, and Reports Committee is the screening committee that hears any matter that comes before us, whether it's a patient or a client making a complaint or an employer making a report to us. That committee screens all those. And if it's deemed serious enough, any of things that goes from the Inquiries, Complaints, Reports Committee would go to discipline for a determination. Our Fitness to Practice Committee, that is available to us if there is somebody who may not be capable of being an occupational therapist for whatever reason, generally related to some sort of health concern, then that committee would spring into action. The Patient Relations Committee is there to make sure that the relationship between patients and occupational therapists is appropriate and healthy. They've been responsible for the Code of Ethics, the standards for prevention of sexual abuse and appropriate boundaries, and also should there be a finding or there be a sexual abuse of a patient from an occupational therapist, they're there to support the clients who have undergone that unfortunate problem, and they can support them as they go through the process. Quality assurance program is probably what all of you have been familiar with if you've been doing your mandatory requirements. They look after what those are as well as what the ongoing quality assurance program would be, so they make the big decisions there. The practice subcommittee, they're the group made up of a lot of occupational therapists actually from the community who help us with what those standards of practice need to be. What are the positions? What are the standards? What's changing in the OT environment that we need to address in our documents? And the Quality Assurance Subcommittee is there to help us with our yearly educational module. They help us with what's happening out in practice, helping us with scenarios, what we need to do. Tons more information on our website if you want to take a look. So just so you know, our elections this year are in District 1, which is our biggest district with the most population. So there's 3 candidates from, or three seats up for election this year in District 1. We are divided into 6, so we have diversity throughout the province, and they rotate on a 3-year basis. So District 1, just so you know, it's very large. It's all of Toronto, all the way up to Haliburton, Northumberland, Peterborough, Simcoe and the Kawartha Lakes, and the regions of Durham, Peel, and York. So a very large region with a lot of occupational therapists. So it's all being conducted electronically. If you wish to stand for election, there is an electronic form that you would complete, and you get your nominees that way. Every person who's standing needs to have 3 nominees from the District 1 in order to support them to stand. And we also have a candidate eligibility and consent form that is accessible on our website, or we will send it to you if we don't see it coming in with your nomination form. And that's a PDF, and that is related to those, some of the competencies we talked about, as well as the eligibility requirements in our bylaws. Also, if you're interested in, if you're in this district and you want to participate in the election, which I hope you all will, make sure that we have your up-to-date information in your member profile, which if you got notice of this webinar, you're all good, but keep up to date by making sure we have the correct information about you on our website. So some dates, we've already opened the nominations, December 3rd. They will close January 28th. And so make sure that all your stuff is in if you want to nominate yourself or somebody else. So that means your nomination form with your 3 nominees has to be completed, and your candidate eligibility and consent form completed. And by attending this webinar today, you've had your pre-election webinar, which is great, so you've done that. The voting will open on February 17th, and it just gives us a little time to prepare the ballots and make sure that everybody's eligible and we're all good. And it will close 2 weeks after that on March the 3rd. And we know instantaneously, because it's all electronic, who is successful. 3 people this year. And so now, hopefully I've given you a good overview of what's happening with elections this year. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box, or it says questions, so you can type a question in there. If you can't think of a question now, but you have some later, you know where we are. Just send me an email, or you can contact my assistant, Angelina Sanier, and she will answer any of your questions as well. And hopefully that will help. I'll just give it a few minutes to see if anybody has any questions that you can type in. So who can be a nominator? Are there any requirements is our first question. And so a nominator, of course, has to be an occupational therapist that's in good standing at the college, and they have to be from District 1. So either working in District 1, or if they're not working, then they would have to live in District 1. The next question is, do committee meetings happen once a month? Well, it all depends on the committee, but generally we say to give yourself about once a month. Most of the committee meetings right now, because they're via Zoom, are about a half a day. We don't know how that's going to change if the pandemic ever goes away, and I'm saying that, who knows? But right now it's about a half day, and it's we're using our Zoom platform, and it all depends on what committee you're on, whether it's once a month or every second month. It just really all depends. But the board meetings are definitely 4 times a year, and we set them all in advance. And in order to schedule these committees too, once we have the committees put together, then we will connect with all of the committee members to find out when the best day is, and can you do this morning versus this afternoon, and that sort of thing. So we try to work the schedule so it can work for most people. Thanks for your questions. The term of office is for 3 years, and so it starts on March 24th of 2022 and goes to March 2025, which feels so long away, but that is just 3 years. Another question, if you got elected but then have to move outside of District 1, would you need to resign your role as a director? You might, because then we would no longer have the diversity of board members. So District 1 is a huge district, so you'd still have to maintain all the eligibility. So if you do move outside of, or it's really about working. So if you're still working in District 1, you would still be okay to be on the board. If you're not, but if you're both working and living outside of District 1, then we would have to have a discussion. Any other questions? Let's give it a couple of minutes. You all know where I am, so send me a question. You can get to our website, www.coto.org, to get my email address, which is elarney@coto.org. Super easy to remember if you have any questions going forward. All right, well, I don't see any more questions, and I thank you all for your attendance this afternoon, and I wish you all a good day and a good holiday season. And I hope that I've sparked your interest in participating on our board at the college in protection of the public for the whole profession. So thank you very much, and we'll call it a session.